Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
Here we are. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey coming in this hour. Ryan Russillo later this morning. Paul Feinbaum later this morning. And with last night's Monday night win of the Cowboys over the Cardinals, we brought to a close a week unlike any in NFL history, maybe in the history of any sport, with patriotism and free speech and the president and our most popular pastime all coming together in ways we had never seen before. And when we began the show exactly 2 hours ago, I started by asking you, is this part of this story over now? Do things go back to, for lack of a better word, kind of where they were last Thursday? And then within a half hour, we got the answer to that. No, it is not. For those of you just waking up and have not noticed this or seen it or whatever, if you have things going on in your life that you're not following with bated breath every single time the president tweets, he has tweeted 3 times about the National Football League and the anthem protests already this morning. They came in a flurry about 15 minutes apart at about 6:30 Eastern time this morning. And so the question for you here, Mike, is whatever it is that I may think of that, or you may think of that, or anyone thinks of that, he's not letting it go.
Right.
He's not letting this topic go. And that does, I think, beg the question you brought up earlier. We got a lot of type A people going on here. How do you think the players and the league respond if the president continues with this?
You're not going to sit there and tell a player he can or can't do this. At least I don't think you would. But I think at this point, if I'm meeting with my players, and again, I have to go back to my 25-year-old to 30-year-old when you maybe want to fire back, and the coach, who is normally older, unless you're Sean McVay and 31, and you're telling your team, you know what, guys, let's move on. Let's move on from this. Let's not get in the battle and say more about this, because then the tweets will come back at it again, and this thing keeps going. We made our statement of unity. We did what we want to do. Let's go on about our business. Now, easier said than done. When I said you have type A personalities in this who are going to want to fire back because they keep getting fired on. So that's what I would do if I was a coach, is I would kind of relay that message. And whatever coach-player relationship you have, I really hope that your players would listen to that, and the leaders would then echo that in the room, because the reporters will go to anybody now. They'll go to the top players, but they'll try and get that soundbite from anybody now, somebody firing back at the president. Normally you have X amount of guys that the media that comes in every day will go to. They'll go to the stars of the team or the guys that give good quotes, funny, whatever. But in this case, if they're not getting it from those people, they'll keep going down the line to someone you may not know as well, as long as they're firing back at the president. So that's what they'll try. And I'm not saying that in a bad way for the reporters. That's their job. They're trying to get a quote and answer, hey, the president is still tweeting about this. What do you have to say? If I were the coach, I would try and say, guys, we made our statement last week. We did the unity thing. We all locked arms. We did what we wanted to do. Let's say we're moving on from that, and we're just going to play our season. We're going to deal with our business. And, at the most, I'd say we're going to deal with our business, and we hope the president deals with his business. And that's what I would say, and move on, or not even bring them up at all. Just say we're moving on from this, and we're going to play our season.
Publicly. There's no way in the world they're moving on from it privately, obviously.
No, not at all.
But what it does, however, I get that you don't want the sound bites and you don't want that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's the games are going to start again this week.
Oh, yeah.
We got a game in 2 days.
Yeah.
We're going to have a national anthem before the game between the Bears and the Packers on Thursday. And then we're going to have a whole bunch more on Sunday.
What's the most we saw? I mean, the most we saw was really with the Cowboys last night, right? As a team kneeling down before the national anthem and then standing for the national anthem. Other than that, we have seen, this isn't the first week players locked arms, right? They have done it before. So outside, to me, one of the biggest differences was you saw owners down on the field, with the players. I don't know if that will continue. I don't see there being much difference. I think that they have kind of been, saying nothing happened And forgetting what the Cowboys did, because that was a little different of what we saw, was anything else really that different? Maybe the Raiders, because a lot of them sat down. But other than that, it was
far bigger numbers of players who did it than in the past.
So maybe there were 10 or 15. Maybe now they'll be back to 5 or what it was, or 3.
Some teams stayed in the locker room. Now, right? The Steelers didn't come out. The Titans didn't come out.
That was the biggest thing. That team stayed in the locker room. You're right. And that will be the most, because on the field, I don't see anything really different happening outside of the number of people that kneel. You're still going to have people that kneel. You're still going to have people that lock arms. You're still going to have people with their arm or hand on the shoulder pad of somebody who's kneeling. That isn't changing. That hasn't changed, and that wasn't any different this week. It will be interesting if teams decide to stay in the locker room. You already heard the Pittsburgh Steelers are not. They were that whole thing, the debacle that
didn't go well. Yeah,
they said they're going to be out on the field for the national anthem. And I know Seattle and was it Tennessee? There were a couple of teams that stayed in. Will teams stay in for the national anthem? Personally, I doubt it. I think they'll go back out on the field and they'll do whatever they did before this week thing happened. So
we'll see
what happened this week, I should say.
We'll see. Right now, from one of the president's tweets, the words "great anger" are trending around the country right now. They're trending right behind National Pancake Day. But Trump, among the things he tweeted was, "The booing at the football game last night when the entire Dallas team dropped to its knees was the loudest I've ever heard. Great anger." So he was excited by the anger last night.
Yes, he was.
Anyway, so that's out there this morning. And I know there were a lot of people, because I've seen it, that are asking us to just talk about the games. And largely we have been mostly talking about the game. But I would say that, not that it needs defending, but you cannot pretend this isn't happening.
Right.
This is a sports story. The President of the United States called, for all intents and purposes, called for a boycott of the National Football League over the weekend, and this morning, within a 10-minute span, tweeted 3 times about what happened in the Monday night game last night. It really is not. It would be irresponsible to ignore it. It's not possible to ignore it.
So now we see. To me, it will all come down to what the players say in their media availability day, or
if he keeps going,
or I should say, maybe in Twitter. Maybe have we? I'm sure we're obviously monitoring if any player has fired back in Twitter. We have not seen that at this point, if they have or not. And again, that's something they're outside the facility. So unless there's some mandate with team, and normally, there is not. They just want you to be smart about it. But I haven't seen any player fire back yet. And I really think that's how the coaches are going to address it with their team before their media availability today. So is it over? Who knows? I don't know at this point. All I can do is kind of turn it to a fun note, because when you said National Pancake Day, how many years ago was it when I ate 22 pancakes during the show?
Several. And you ate I did.
I ate 22 pancakes on National Pancake Day. I started at the beginning of the show, and I ate 22 pancakes throughout the show. And let me tell you, it was hard. That filled me up about as much as anything when I've done a lot of eating on the show over 18 years. A lot.
It's a lot of carbs.
The easiest thing was probably beating Stugatz with the little donuts when I ate like 40 of them in 8 minutes. That was a breeze. And the hardest thing may have been the pancakes, eating 22 within the framework of the show. That really sat in my gut.
All right, Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today. Find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. Meanwhile, it was a big win for the Cowboys last night, and it did not start pretty, and they do not look like the team that just sort of ran all over, both literally and figuratively, almost everyone in the NFL last year. They're not running the ball the same way they did a year ago, Mike, and what are you seeing as the difference? Charles Woodson was talking about Zeke being a one-cut back, and those holes just not being there, those creases not being there. They only ran 15 offensive plays in the entire first half last night, and that is a function of not winning on first down. So why aren't they running the ball?
Like anything else, it's a combination. It's not one thing. You're not going to say the 5 offensive linemen, 3 of which are all pros and Pro Bowlers, all of a sudden forgot how to block. Though, give credit where it's due. Denver beat them up front. Not schematically, they beat them up front with man-to-man. And everybody knows it when you walk in. As I said, when you walk into it's the great equalizer and the great revealer is a film room. When they say the eye in the sky don't lie, you can never hide from the camera and what it shows. So when you get beat. And then there's a scheme. There's the one cut back of Zeke Elliott, who's had a lot of great things to cut to. A lot of great things to make a move to because of that offensive line. whether it's going outside or inside. You see a lot of movement, especially Zach Martin's a guy who pulls an awful lot, whether it's across the center or to his right and being the right guard. And then there's scheme. Loading up in the box means there's going to be extra guys, and it's going to be on Zeke to beat that guy. You can only block so many guys. If they bring more in the box than you have and you still try and run the ball, some of the onus is going to fall on the running back, not only to pick the hole, but be able to avoid the unblocked person because you don't have enough to block them. And then there's scheme. There's, okay, they're really loading up on us and having extra people there. We need to back them off. How do we back them off? Well, you play action because they'll always have the threat of the run. Play action's always going to be successful, I think, or have a high percentage of being successful for the Dallas Cowboys. So you play action, you hit your tight end, you hit your, you roll out your quarterback because he can, and you back him off. So what's happened is, especially Denver, and this is something you don't see happen to the Cowboys in a running game. Denver dictated to them. Denver put the Dallas offense on their heels. That offense usually puts you on your heels. They're usually running successfully, which makes the play action that much better. You have a mobile quarterback who can roll out, which really opens things up, or he can throw it from the pocket pretty well with the protection. So they're normally making a defense, putting them on their heels and making them react. But it's been Denver, especially last week, and give some Cardinals credit certainly for a bit because the running game wasn't great last night for Dallas, but really Denver that really put that offense on their heel.
The performance of Dak Prescott getting a lot of praise afterwards. He had 120 of his passing yards last night outside the pocket. He also ran for a touchdown. He has 7 rushing touchdowns, which is the most of any quarterback in the league since he came into the league. So he's getting it done every way you can, and right now he's doing it without that dominant running game. And our Steve Young, Hall of Fame quarterback himself, was watching and was impressed.
This was the statement game after the Denver kind of debacle. All of them they never got punched in the mouth like that, even last year. So everyone's talking, well, what's wrong? Is it Dak? Can he handle it? And he just, to your point, came out like a veteran. Let's just not panic, because it started slow, just kind of kept at it. And I think his ability to move the pocket was the difference.
His ability to move the pocket, but remember, they have to call it as well, because some of those happen and some of those are designed. And when, that's a coach keeping an eye on what's going on and adjusting. Okay, we're having trouble here. What can help open that up? Well, get my quarterback on the move because he can. Gives him the option to run, gives him the option to throw. When he was out rolling right, that beautiful throw to Bryce Butler, and Butler did a great job of going up and getting the ball, but you have the ability to do that. So you have options if you're calling those plays of saying, okay, we're having some issues here. We need to open it up in other ways, and we have the ability because of the versatility of our quarterback.
All right, we are Mike and Mike. We'll keep some of this going here with the big Cowboys win last night. We have the hashtag #TooFarTuesday working this morning with all the Twitter coming through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Let me read you some more of these. Derek tweets at us, the Dolphins will bench Jay Cutler before the year is out. Now, Adam Gase yesterday talking about an offense that for 59 minutes and 50-something seconds didn't score against the Jets on Sunday. He called his own offense garbage. He talked about making a lot of changes, didn't rule out personnel changes. Do you expect the quarterback, not this week, but at some point, Mike, to be one of those?
If he plays poorly, I don't look to them to go to Matt Moore for a spark at some point. I mean, if Cutler is turning the ball, listen, that's been his bugaboo, right? Turning the ball over.
Sure.
And you just can't. They're not good enough yet to overcome that. They're not good enough on one side of the ball to overcome, like the greatest show on turf when Kurt Warner's saying, I don't care about the turnovers, we can overcome all that. They're not good enough to overcome. Most teams aren't. So unless he has a rash of those, I don't see him getting benched. Not anytime soon. But I do think Adam Gase would not hesitate to make some changes on that team. There were some expectations this year for this team. You kind of weren't sure which direction they were going to go. And I quite honestly thought the offense had a little more firepower than they're showing right now.
There's one here. You read this one earlier, but I wanted to touch on it again. Dan, or the Too Far Tuesday, tweets, the Giants will draft Saquon Barkley in next year's draft and completely rebuild their offensive line. That's a good tweet for a variety of reasons. One, if you read into it, it suggests that they'll be picking very, very high because he's going to be drafted very, very high. And, of course, the Giants are 0-3 right now, so we'll see. I still am not ready to bury them completely.
What's it going to take?
They had every chance to win this week in Philly. It's going to take them winning a game or two somewhere, and then everything might turn out okay.
They're not a good team. They're not a good team. Their defense.
We saw just a little glimpses in the fourth quarter of what they can be when they get that offense going a little bit with Odell. I mean, that's what you keep waiting to have happen.
Right.
And I understand it doesn't happen consistently enough, and the defense can't just carry them nonstop.
Right.
But forgetting that.
Yeah.
For those of you watching with us on ESPN2 in the last break, you saw Golick doing a great breakdown of Saquon Barkley. So I'll throw my own little hashtag Too Far Tuesday at you. Is it too far to say Saquon Barkley is the best running back that we've seen in college football in a generation?
Well, I mean, as when Booger was on here, he said since Barry Sanders, and that was in the mid to later 80s, right?
Barry would have been mid 80s,
88, I think, 89, that area.
Sounds right.
I think I put it more along the lines of Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush catching the ball out of the backfield. Reggie Bush, incredible quickness, and Reggie Bush is one of the best.
He was a great college
player I've ever, one of the best I've seen, without question. Was Reggie Bush.
That's fair.
And Saquon Barkley is averaging. And this is the best thing because this is what. And Penn State's not doing this to prepare him for the next level. Penn State's doing this because you want the ball in his hands. In his first 2 seasons playing, he averaged 2 catches a game. This year he's averaging 6 catches a game. That's because you want the ball in the hands of this guy. His subtle moves, as I tried to highlight, his subtle moves to get himself that little bit of crease, and then his ability to hit top speed almost instantly is ridiculous. Plus, he'll drop a shoulder at 5'11", 225, 230 on you. He is something to watch. So I think he's the best player in college football. All depends a lot. We know the Heisman on how your team is doing. So let's see. He's the favorite right now.
And they're a good team.
And Mason Rudolph was up there, and then they lost. Baker Mayfield is up there, and they're still winning. We've seen Sam Darnold not look. Sam Darnold's been interesting to me, I still like his passes, but he's making some bad decisions on where he's passing the ball. I think Josh Rosen has one of the best releases I've seen, but they've had a couple of losses, but he's putting up those chunk yards, which we see, but their team-wise, isn't doing that great right now. But Barkley projecting to the next level, you know what it's going to come down to, Greeny. The teams that are picking up there, do they need a quarterback or a running back? And if your Jets are up there, they need a quarterback.
Sure.
They're going to take a quarterback. So it all depends on the team that's up there. If the Giants, for some reason, are up there, they need a quarterback. Some will say, do you take a quarterback as the next guy for Eli because he's getting up there in age? Or do you say, you know what? We still got Eli. We got a few more years with him. Let's get ourselves a running game and get ourselves this running back, and hope we can work with the offensive line, whether it's new pieces there or whatever they have to do, and keep going. That's what it comes down to, is the need.
The Giants have drafted quarterbacks a couple of times recently. They drafted Ryan Nassib, whatever it was, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever that was, and they drafted Davis Webb this past year. Now, does that mean they believe they have the quarterback of the future on the roster? I'm not 100% sure. Going back to Barkley for a minute, the difference between Barkley and Bush was a great player, and sometimes we do this, and it's not fair, it's not the right way. We look at a guy's pro career, and we allow it to influence the way we remember him as a collegiate.
Yeah, I'm not doing
Bush was an unbelievable college player.
Yeah.
He has been less than that as a pro, obviously. Yes. He's had a nice NFL career.
But not what you thought, given what his college career was.
He's not going to the Hall of Fame or anything close. I agree with you. He's one of the great backs I've ever seen in college football.
Yes.
But he didn't have anywhere near the power that Barkley has. Barkley has
Barkley's
a combination.
Bigger. Barkley's big. Well, listen, we're not saying exact. We're saying who does remind you of him, because they're throwing him the ball more out of the backfield.
Yeah, who does he remind you of?
As far as from college or in
Barkley,
the NFL?
Well, anybody.
You're talking. See, I'm not a big fan of.
Who's that big and that fast, and he's catching the ball? Look, here's a stat for you. 146 guys in the last 10 years in college have averaged 120 yards rushing per game. 146 guys. Right. There's only one of them that has also averaged over 50 yards receiving in the games, and it's Saquon Barkley. So he's running it he runs it like Reggie Bush. He catches it out of the backfield like anybody you want to name, and he's got the power.
Because you look at a guy catching the ball in the backfield and has speed as Dalvin Cook. But, Saquon can drop the shoulder as well.
He's way bigger, isn't he?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He can drop the shoulder and do it. He has the ability to do basically all of it.
So who does he remind you of? We always compare guys. What NFL player does Saquon Barkley look like?
I got to think about that because I hate doing that.
Who's he waiting to be? You know what I mean? We looked at it, he's going to be him.
Right.
This guy,
I so hate doing that, but I understand why people do it. I'll try and think of somebody.
Leonard Fournette? Does Fournette have any of that? Is he David Johnson?
Well,
he's bigger than Le'Veon Bell.
David Johnson's about 2.25, isn't he? And David Johnson will drop a shoulder on you and he's got some speed. That might not be a bad one.
How about Bell? Is he that? Is he in that mold? Is he a Le'Veon Bell? He's not going to. I mean, Le'Veon Bell plays half the game flanked out as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Saquon Barkley is doing that. Well, one way or another. I didn't mean to sidetrack us into that, but I love him. I mean, you know me. I fall hard, and I've fallen hard for that kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's easy to fall for and watching him perform.
Let me give you a quick story here off the subject. That over the weekend, I set aside a bunch of stuff that there was zero chance we were getting to yesterday, and frankly, most of it we won't get to at all. But here's one because of the significance to you of family in sports that I knew you would appreciate. Did you see the story of the Farrells and the experience they had over the weekend?
I did not.
So, Luke Farrell is a pitcher on the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay.
And he came out and he pitched a scoreless top of the ninth inning for the Reds.
Okay.
As he was walking back to the dugout, the opposing manager gave him a little subtle tip of the cap. And that's because the opposing manager is his father, John Farrell, of the Boston Red Sox. Luke Farrell became the first pitcher ever to face a team managed by his father in a game in Major League Baseball. Watching from the visiting dugout along the third base line in a 5-0 Red Sox romp, John Farrell saw his son Luke toss a scoreless top of the ninth and then saluted him with a slight tip of the cap as the 26-year-old right-hander walked off the mound. It was the first time any player had faced his father's team since Moises Alou with the Chicago Cubs against Felipe Alou and the San Francisco Giants in 2004.
That's cool.
So it's fathers and sons have competed against each other, but never has a son pitched against a team his father was managing.
Cool. That's very cool.
Good story, right?
Yeah. Who do you root for in that family? You're in the others in the mom or siblings. Who are you rooting for?
The siblings I can't speak to. You know the
mom's rooting for the son, without question.
Oh, that's a lot.
She's hoping she hammers the man.
If Mike and or Jake was playing on a team and you were coaching the other team, your wife would buy jerseys
by the other team. She would buy middle finger, foam things for me and such, without question. Still, I think
she'd be questioning your strategy from
without
the
it. She'd be heckling me, the whole deal. I still think the best father-son. Ken Griffey Jr. Didn't they go back-to-back home runs?
Yes. Yes, correct.
That one's tough to beat.
I know Don and David Shula coached against each other in an NFL game, father against son. So there's been a bunch of that. But I liked that story over the weekend, and I knew that you would like it as well.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance. So you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh. Switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Did you invoke my buddy Chuck?
Who was your buddy Chuck?
Chuck Dickens in that?
Oh, Charles Dickens?
Chuck.
CD, as you call him?
Yeah.
I did. I brought up Charles Dickens. I also saw the trending earlier today that today is T.S. Eliot's birthday, who I know is one of your favorite poets.
Oh, we've had T.S. Eliot month in the house.
So this is something you have to look forward to, Trey Wingo, as Trey makes his way in studio here.
I've made a terrible mistake.
We read, we write papers, we discuss.
Sure.
Yeah.
And have herbal tea.
Well, herbal something.
They smoke.
Oh, come on!
Wow, what happened there?
That.
Trey Wingo, who is one of the biggest Cowboy fans we know, among other things, guys, asked him, how'd you feel about your team last night? And the first thing you said was?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, look, I was watching the first half, and Carson Palmer hit his first 11 throws.
Yeah.
Dallas couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't get a first down on their first two series, I don't think. And I'm like, am I watching the Denver game on replay? And then the amazing thing was how quickly it turned. Arizona dominated that game in every way possible. How that game was tied at the half.
7-7 at half, and
it's
they had a ball of
ridiculous.
19 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously they get the touchdown, Arizona called back, and then
misses
a field goal. I mean, the Cowboys got the benefit of a short field, and then Dak just took off in the second half. And what I find interesting is how accurate he is when he moves. You know the old movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and they're about to hire Robert Redford as the kid to be a bank guard, and he tries to hit a little peg of wood, and he misses like 5 times. And then he goes, "Can I move?" And he goes, "What do you mean, can you move?" And he just sort of jumps down and goes, bang, 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 and hits the thing 3 times. He goes, "I'm better when I move." I think Dak is better when he moves. Those throws he made outside of the pocket last night were ridiculous.
And a great job. And, again, some are planned and some are just him getting out. But it's a good job by the play calling when running's not working, because they got hammered against Denver. They didn't run great last night either. Still under 100 yards, under 4 yards per carry. So the play calling has to help as well, whether it's the men getting beat up front, whether it's a scheme, there's too many in the box and Zeke, has to make one miss, or there's just too many there and you have to get them out of that. So move Dak around, and that's what they're doing.
Well, schematically, what I thought was really interesting last night is what really opened up any running game for the Cowboys with the zone reads by Dak, because a couple of times they all went and bit in on Zeke, and that allowed Dak to get some big runs, including that touchdown where he went over the top. The question then becomes, how much are you willing to do that with your quarterback?
Not much.
Right? Because that's the issue with Cam Newton and everybody else. What do we always say? You see a lot of good young running quarterbacks, not a lot of old ones.
No, you don't. I really pick my spots in those because you have too many other weapons. You got to believe the running game will get going. He still throws well from the pocket, and he throws great on the move. So let him roll, and if he wants to run that way, you're more toward the sideline to decide, do you get down, you get out of bounds, or you throw it away.
Right.
Making your decisions, where the zone read, you're looking to be the runner to make hay on that play, which means you may put yourself in a tougher situation.
But they needed it last night.
Oh, they did.
They didn't have anything going until that happened.
That's exactly right. I'm sure not many Cowboy fans were real happy seeing Dak get flipped, even though he scored a touchdown, but then you're holding your breath saying, get up, get up, get up.
Mike and Wingo in studio. So, again, taking anyone's personal allegiances aside, you look at the Cowboys at 2-1, Washington 2-1, Philadelphia 2-1. Right now, as you watch them, who's the best team in the division?
That's a great question. I don't think we can say that with any great certainty at this point. I thought Philadelphia. By the way, Philadelphia with the 61-yard field goal for the kid. Did you see the video of his parents? By the way,
phenomenal video.
It's so great. I don't know. I really can't answer that question, because I thought Dallas was dominant week 1 against the Giants, but we all have seen the Giants have had all kinds of struggles this week. I think this was the way the Cowboys played in the first half as opposed to the way they played in the second half was absolutely remarkable. And was that DeMarcus Lawrence or DeMarcus Ware out there?
About it.
Right? I mean, that was a show. The kid, I think, has 6.5 sacks
most
in 3 games.
Most from a Cowboy in the first 3 games.
Yeah, not only that, the first Cowboy since Ed Too Tall Jones to have 3 sacks on Monday Night Football, but I think he leads the NFL in sacks now.
He does with the 6.5. Their defense played big last night.
And a lot of times on a 3-man rush.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You have to give them credit, because they kept that score down for Dallas to finally get back in the game, because Dallas never had the ball in this one. So, and quickly, a shout out to Larry Fitzgerald at 13 catches and 149 yards. Just a joke.
How about that catch on the sidelines? On
3rd and 18 right? And gets
Crazy.
24.
Crazy.
Cutting across the defender was amazing.
He's got it going, but even in a division that doesn't look as good as we thought it would, or at least Seattle doesn't look as good as we thought they would, and the Rams maybe look better than we expected, I don't think Arizona's a factor out there this year. I just don't think they have enough. I think my instinct watching them is to say, and not that this has nothing to do with Fitzgerald necessarily, and maybe if David Johnson were there, it would look different. But it feels like whatever it is they've been trying to do with this group, they need to start over again.
Yeah, look, this is sort of a continuation from what we saw last year. I mean, I'll give Carson Palmer all the credit in the world, man. He took a beating there last night.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know how many. Was it 6, 7?
6 sacks.
Yeah, but how many hits? How many times did he get on the floor?
It's usually at least double the amount of sacks.
Right, and then for him to make those throws, like the one that Jerron Brown didn't get the toe tap down before the Larry Fitzgerald catch. I mean, he was in there slinging. People sometimes are also criticizing the end of the game scenario because they were down 11. They needed 2 scores. Did you guys have any problems with the way they were playing it out, going for the touchdown first as opposed to kicking the easy field goal and then keeping the game alive potentially with an onside kick?
Yes, and I've been saying this for years. Kick the field goal. Keep the game alive.
That's the whole point.
This a lot? You know who used to say that all the time was Phil Simms when he was doing games, and he's been displaced now by Romo. But he would always say, make the other team keep playing.
Extend the game.
Extend the game.
Yeah, get it to a 1-score game.
Don't pay no attention to how it changes people will show you the odds of winning. It gets cut in half because overtime, by definition, your odds of winning are 50-50.
Correct.
So
you have to do everything to get it to overtime. You're down 11. At some point, you have to say, we need to make sure we get points here, and then we'll go for the onside kick. Right. And like you said, all the stats will say, look, at the end of the day, you're going to need 2 possessions, and you're going to need 2 scores. You might as well get one of them off as quickly as you can.
And maximize the time time that you have
the
left
game
have
going.
a chance.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Palmer, by the way, was hit 11 times last night. Mike, Trey Wingo is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. On that topic, maybe because I refuse to believe what my eyes are seeing and instead continue to believe what I thought was going to happen to begin with. I've not yet thrown dirt on the Giants. I know they're 0-3. I know the rest of the division is 2-1. I know that the offensive line continues to be a disaster. But you saw the spark in the fourth quarter that you believe is possible. I know this week is a tough game. Are you ready to bury the Giants? You believe they are dead?
Well, look, you're right. No one's 3-0 in the division, so that certainly helps them. And, I just said all these stats things don't matter, and I'm going to throw a stat at you. So I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah, okay? We're going to be that. I look forward to that.
They're 0-3, okay? Now, we've had teams make the playoffs under the current playoff format going 0-3. Hasn't happened in 20 years. Last time that happened, Doug Flutie was quarterbacking the Bills, and Wade Phillips was their head coach. We're talking a long time ago. That was the season that led into the postseason with the Music City Miracle.
Right.
That's how long ago it is. So is it possible? Yes. But when like you said, Washington looks pretty balanced. Philadelphia looks pretty balanced. I mean, they averaged 5 yards a carry on 39 attempts on Sunday. And now you have the Cowboys who, even though they still don't look right, the surprise for them has been how well their defense has played. I think that's what makes it difficult. I'm not willing to throw dirt on the Giants because of who they are, but who they're up against, the other three teams in that division.
I start to look at Washington a little more.
Yeah.
Top 10 in both offense, total defense.
What they did, Oakland was 0 for 11 on third down.
Just ask Josh Norman what they did.
Oh, he'll tell you. He'll be more than happy to tell you.
He had great sound after that game.
For whatever this is worth, the Eagles have banked a win in Washington,
Correct.
which is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Right. Those Week 1 games come back to be a big factor. And again, if you're not giving up on the Giants, as I'm not, then you're staring a brutal schedule in the face. They go to Tampa this weekend, which is no picnic.
They're a little banged up, but Gerald McCoy, do we know what his status is yet? I mean, he left that game in Minnesota.
Yet, yeah.
And he did say if the fans are angry, they should say it to his face. We can get into that in a minute. Oh. But then after that, they get the Rams, then they go to Denver, then they get Seattle. So they've got a tough schedule in front of them. Trey Wingo in studio with us here. All right, we haven't gotten to this all morning long, so let's hear it. This is Alejandro Villanueva, who most people by now are well aware is an offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is an Army Ranger, served multiple
3 tours of duty
overseas, and now has the number 1 selling jersey in the National Football League. After it appeared he was the only member of the Pittsburgh Steelers who came out for the anthem Sunday in Chicago. He was quite upset with the way it was portrayed and the way it turned out. Here was his explanation.
I see that picture of me standing by myself. I feel embarrassed to a degree because, again, like I said, unintentionally I left my teammates behind. It wasn't me stepping forward. I never planned to boycott the plan that the Steelers came up with. I just thought that there was to be some middle ground where I could stay in the tunnel, nobody would see me, and then afterwards I wouldn't talk to the media like I do all the time. And at the end of the day, the reason, whether I wanted it or not, whether it was my intended plan or not, the reason that I went out there by myself is the reason that is causing all this distress and is making the organization look bad, my coach look bad, and my teammates look bad. And for anybody who thinks that Coach Tomlin is not as patriotic as you can get in America, or any one of my teammates or the owner, I take offense to that.
That was just an incredibly weird situation. Ben Roethlisberger posting that he's sorry that they did that, and he wanted to be out on the field, and they're going to be out on the field. To Alejandro thought the guys were behind him. He just wanted to see the flag, and he took everything on himself. I mean, listen, I've got to meet that guy and did a couple things at the Super Bowl with him last year. He and his wife, they could be the nicest people I think I've ever met for this monster guy that he is. And I mean, I said yesterday, I don't know what they worked out, Trey, but my thing would have been, if we're going to work it now, it turns out that they're making this explanation for something. But if there was an initial plan, it would have been, this is what we're all doing. Alejandro, you do what you feel you need to do.
Right.
that would have been my thing. If you do 3 tours, you feel you need to go out there, you go out there, and then we're all going to, do what we need to do. But he wouldn't have done that.
No.
He would not have been that guy to be separate from his team. That's why he's profusely apologizing for seemingly being separate from the team.
Well, and the interesting thing is, if you listen to Mike Tomlin's comments before the game, he said, look, we don't want to be involved in this political football, for lack of a better. We want to stay out of it. And that was their decision. For example, the Seahawks made a statement before the game. They were absolutely doing this as part of the protest. And so that's why they did it. Mike Tomlin's initial thought after a Saturday meeting with the team was, look, let's just stay out of it. Let's just do our thing here in the locker room, and then we'll come out. That way, we're not going to be a part of the story. And unfortunately, it became the exact opposite, and it became one of the biggest parts of the entire season.
Well, the sense you get is that maybe it was creating some kind of divisiveness within their own locker room. There were guys that wanted to do this and guys that wanted to do that, and basically Tomlin said, we're all going to do the same thing, so I'm going to make the decision that we don't have to go out there in the first place. Trey, where does this go from here? We have the president, as I've mentioned multiple times, tweeting 3 times on this topic in a 9-minute stretch of the 6 o'clock hour Eastern time this morning. So he's not letting it go.
No.
Do you expect the players and the teams to some degree to let it go this week? Where does this now go from here?
Well, I think that's going to be up to what happens going forward with this. Look, you're right. The president is not going to let this go, and he thinks he's getting support from his base because of this. I think you talked to I heard some of the Bills players after the game in Denver, or against Denver, that they won. Some of the guys said, look, I wanted to show my solidarity for those people that were protesting by protesting this time around. I'm not going to do that going forward. So I think those that were protesting before this will probably continue, but I don't think we'll see the same mass number of players doing it. It was some 200, I think, that was before the Monday night game when the entire Cowboys team and Jerry Jones, by the way, took the knee. So I think we'll see it dialed back simply because I think a lot of people wanted to say, don't tell us what we can and can't do.
Well, I think that's exactly what it was, and now I hope, with the president tweeting again this morning, more of his stuff against about the NFL and getting booed and getting booed with great anger and taking some joy in that. My thought was I would hope the coaches tell the players, they're not going to tell them don't say this or say that, but highly suggested them, let's move past this. Let's not, as I said, got a lot of A personalities, from the president to professional football players, professional athletes, who want to answer it. Somebody called us out, we're firing back. Oh, you're firing back? Well, I'm going to call you out even more.
Right.
At some point, somebody's got to say, let's move on from this. And I'm hoping the coaches get the players to be able to not, as when the media jumps in there today, they're going to be looking for that quote. What do you think of what the president tweeted? I hope they just say, you know what, we're moving on to the next game. I hope they pull a Bill Belichick on to Cincinnati, and say, let's go.
And the other thing, too, is since we played the sound from Villanueva there, there was a great article, a couple of articles in Pittsburgh, where he went into great detail about his thoughts about why he stood for the flag and why he wasn't upset with his teammates as a veteran who chose to protest. And if you really want to read it, I mean, it gives you some great insight into what he was thinking and what his teammates were thinking. And I would encourage everybody just to read some of those things that people are saying, so we're not on this, you're this and you're that, and let's try and diffuse the great anger, because the great anger isn't helping anybody.
And one of the things a lot of people are pointing to is that Villanueva's jersey all of a sudden is the top seller, and everybody is saying, see. Let's remember when Kaepernick did what he did last year, his jersey sales skyrocketed. Yep. And by the way, this August 1st, not too long ago, right? He was number 39 in the league. He was the only player in the top 50 for merchandise sales not on a roster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it worked that way as well as far as jersey sales of those who supported what he did. So here we are, basically in that same
Just read what Alejandro Villanueva, he was very insightful.
The reality of the situation is when you say the great anger isn't helping anybody, I'm not 100% sure that's true. And that may be one of the problems that we have here. There may be some people who are benefiting from the fact that this is dividing people and making people angry and making people passionate on either side of this. And that might be one of the problems that we have here as well. Not everyone has the same idea that you have, that I have, that Mike has.
No question.
About the best way to try and put this behind us, because it might be in their best interest not to put it behind them. Trey Wingo, every week with us here. Great to see you, as always, my friend. Hopefully,
wearing my Mike and Mike shirt. Wearing my Mike and Mike shirt.
Yes, you are.
Rosillo coming up next. Stay there, Mike and Mike.
Yeah.
It's a new shirt.
First time skydiving? Sure is. Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait. Should we be like in tandem? Tandem? That's a great idea. Are you a certified instructor? No, but I love parachutes and I love people.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.